Our role is always to represent and take care of the customer. And suddenly we allow practices in the organization that we're literally abusing the customer. They don't like it. We know they don't like it, and we continue to do it. I think that the consumer, as they're more privacy smart, they're going to purchase whatever cars, whatever purchase they're going to make, they're going to do it from a company they trust with their data.
Hello everyone, I am Sergio Maldonado and this is Masters of Privacy, a set of interviews covering the intersection of marketing, data, privacy and technology with a clear goal in mind, which is redefining the relationship between people, brands and media around transparency and control. Which is to say, we're aiming for real customer centricity, or if you will, human centricity. We regularly talk to DPOs, CMOs, CDOs, and whoever else we find interesting and able to share valuable insights. So we hope you like it. Please do reach out if you have any ideas on future topics or speakers. We have Derek Lackey with us today, another rare find, I'd say, at the intersection of privacy and marketing strategy. He's managing director of Newport Thompson, a privacy agency based in Toronto. Derek's got more than 30 years of marketing, advertising and privacy experience, and he's focused on the impact of privacy and data protection on the brand. He wrote A Marketer's Guide to Email Marketing to Canadians. And he's here to bring us the first of two separate perspectives of EU-US data transfers after the Biden executive order, as well as a glimpse of the Canadian approach and whether it could inspire a better solution. Let's start. Derek, thanks for joining me.
It's my pleasure.
And I wanted to really go straight to the point and start taking a look at the executive order, at Joe Biden's executive order. As you know, there's been some debate on LinkedIn, in Twitter. You've been, adding some value, I believe, to that debate. And so I thought it'd be great to have your perspective as someone that understands marketing really well and understands the consequences of this. And then someone who's taken the trouble to go through the law and through the privacy, regulations. What's your take overall?
I would say that really Biden has bought himself a couple of years with this executive order. A couple of years of being in flux is really all that's happened. By the time Max Schrems goes through Schrems 3, which is inevitable, whatever gets crafted and agreed upon, it's still got to be challenged in court. And you can bet Schrems 3, and it will come apart again, because if you think about what the CJEU said in Schrems 2, they said there had to be substantial change. And I'm not sure that this isn't just icing on a turd.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I think it's still, you could put all the icing and all the nice words around it that you want, but fundamentally, until the US embraces privacy as a fundamental human right, it's going to be difficult to bridge the EU and the US in terms of data transfers.
As you said, so these things are going to happen. The Commission is going to go through adequacy. Member states will have to give an opinion. As you said, EDPB, the Parliament, may have something to say. And so, so at some point, what we end up having is two systems that are pretty much incompatible, right? So again, to recap a little bit, so there were basically two blocks, two sort of parts to the challenge, right? To Schrems 2, and perhaps there will be in Schrems 3, because it looks, if that thing happens. Right. So in Schrems 2, we had the fact that there's a lack of redress, of legal redress. So you as a citizen who's been spied upon, you have no way to sort of go against someone and say, look, I've been, this is a violation. By a government, but how do I get legal redress?
Yep.
And the other one is proportionality, right? Who controls the very sort of activity itself? So who curtails that? Where are the limits to the activity itself? So it's proportional, measured, with a very, very specific purpose. And so those two things, the executive order was addressing by providing both, more clear language as to what they really can do under, for example, FISA, Section 702, and the others. And then, there's this thing, which is the Civil Liberties Protection Officer, which is a bit like the ombudsman, that it's a bit like, the layer that we had to sort of act as an oversight. But then there really is something that looks a bit like a court, which is that once you raise, a concern, there's this new Data Protection Review Court. That's the name. And so this Data Protection Review Court is the one that will be protecting, individuals, provided that you are from a country that, will offer the same protections to US citizens and a few other things. But of course, as you were saying, and you were pointing to Max Schrem's, to his original reaction, he then said, okay, so he's, the executive order and DOJ regulations are addressing those two concerns, but none of them is really being solved. First, there's no real redress because this is not a real court.
Right.
And second, there cannot be such, proportionality and control, because just as you said, whereas in Europe, this is a fundamental human right. Everybody will be looked after because everybody's human. So being human qualifies you, putting it that way. In the US, we always, at the core, we have a Fourth Amendment that treats US citizens as different. And if you're not a US citizen, you will not have the protections that stem from the Fourth Amendment. So you're always going to be an alien that can be spied upon more easily, because there's no such thing as the protection of humans for the very fact that they're humans, if I can be drastic. How is Canada? I'm curious. Are Canadians treated really preferentially in a similar way?
I think the most honest way to answer that is we say all the right things, but when the rubber hits the road, they stand down.
Yeah.
So we're a little more like America than you think we are. Our roots are definitely UK, right? So being a Commonwealth country, and our parliament system and everything is more based on the UK system than the North American system. And so politically, we may look different, but as a stance, we both stop short of having privacy be a fundamental right. Now, one of our provinces, Quebec, just passed a law. It's now called Law 25. And Law 25 changes 21 different acts in Quebec. The main two are the data protection laws for the public bodies and for the private sector. There was substantial change. And one of the changes was they actually went so far as to have consider that privacy is a fundamental right for Quebec residents. So now we've got two standards in Canada. We got a provincial standard that's here, and we got a federal standard that's much lower. So, what I'm advising my clients to do, Sergio, is for compliance, go to the Quebec. Because if you have a national list, the chances are good that 25% of it is going to be from Quebec. It's kind of like California. If you're going to do business in the States, it's going to be hard to have one set of rules for 49 states and then a California rule. You can't manage a privacy management program that way, right? Your staff would go crazy. They wouldn't know if they were punching the board. So what you've got to do is pick the highest bar. So when I deal internationally, and I've got many clients that are global, and we use the GDPR, and I tell them, look, we're going to be compliant to the GDPR. And then we're going to trim around the edges for things like do not sell my data button if you do business in the States, right?
Which is great. Yeah,
And there's
that's a yeah.
like Quebec did something that the UK is now talking about doing. It's written into this new data act in the UK that Liz Truss has put aside for the moment. But Quebec made the highest authority in the company accountable for compliance to this act.
Yeah, that's
So the CEO is on the hook.
That's pretty strong.
And I think they learned from the GDPR, because if you look at one of the most complex issues around enforcing the GDPR, it is that the C-suite is not involved. You know, I'm a marketer, Sergio, and at some point, marketers checked out. Our role is always to represent and take care of the customer. And suddenly we allow practices in the organization that we're literally abusing the customer. They don't like it. We know they don't like it, and we continue to do it. And the business is going to squeal a bit, but I think we have to let them squeal.
It seems like very often we see marketers being sort of portrayed as the enemies of privacy. So you have marketers on one side and then privacy advocates on the other. And I really like the fact that if you really care about marketing, you really care about consumers, and that customer centricity is not about disrespecting the customer, but the opposite.
And I think the one great thing that we're seeing is, I call it the great privacy awakening for the public, and it really started with
Cambridge Analytica, perhaps, or
Cambridge Analytica. That's the one I was looking for. That it really started to make the consumer aware. Like, it's not about the little bits of data you leave here and there. It's when they start to pull them all together, like they're doing, and use it to actually manipulate you. I think that the consumer, as they're more privacy smart, they're going to purchase whatever cars, whatever purchase they're going to make. They're going to do it from a company they trust with their data.
Yeah. So in your practice, you see brands that start to believe that is part of the message.
Yes.
Very good.
Yes, I'm seeing in the marketers who are true marketers. So I have a distinction, and I hate to generalize, but sometimes you have to in order to make a point. Most digital marketers. So follow my thinking here. In the late 90s, when digital started, all marketers had a mass marketing mentality. More eyeballs. That was the rally cry. More eyeballs. Then along comes the internet with an infinite amount of eyeballs. It's like holy jumping. It's a marketer's dream, right? And they applied that mass marketing mentality, and we completely blew digital marketing for the first 20 some years, 25 years, let's say. We completely made a mess out of it because we're using mass marketing mindset on a one-to-one medium. The digital marketing is not about more eyeballs. It's about engagement. When you get engagement right, it scales like hell on the internet. But it's not about traditional mass marketing mentality.
Yeah, distracting people. Exactly. When they're trying to do something so very specific.
Yeah. And as a marketer, I can be very effective going after males 18 to 24. I don't need to go after Sergio, right? I don't even need to know it's Sergio until we do business. And I think marketers have it wrong. They have this thing called the Holy Grail, called personalized one-to-one marketing. It doesn't exist. People don't want to be marketed to that way. They want to think they're buying. They don't want to be sold. So we got to stop this. Stop, right? I love the marketers who are putting really good quality content relative to the product they're selling, and letting people come to them, and not not forcing the issue, right? You don't need to force the issue. If you put the content out and people resonate, it resonates with people who are purchasing. The market, the market. I won't say it takes care of itself, but it kind of does. And you don't need to whack people over the head. Like, one of my consultants signed up for the Gap. She bought a pair of jeans for her son, and they asked for her email address so they could send the receipt. And she's not stupid, but she wanted to see what they do. She got 7 emails a day for the next 14 days.
That's terrible.
Right?
And the excuse, the worst thing is the excuse.
Like, who thought that one through, right?
Yeah.
It's like automated emails run amok, right? And if I were the CMO of the Gap, I would occasionally create a new email address for myself, and I would add myself newly to the list just to see what happens, to experience it like a customer experiences it. And I guarantee you, any CMO with their lights on would look at that and go, "Oh my God, we have to change this."
And look, lawyers, have a responsibility here too. I'm sure there was a lawyer that was an accomplice in that process. Hey, make them sign this thing on the screen as you ask them for an email address so they can get an invoice. Because in the end, now, luckily, having privacy programs and so on, someone, hopefully, will be sitting next to a CMO and saying, look, if you are asking for this, for that purpose, you may not be such a good CMO because you're really lying, but at least we have to do this. This is the purpose that you declare. That's this purpose limitation. There's a retention period. You collect what you need for the time that you need, if there's third parties involved. But there's these practices where everyone is just amassing. Again, everyone is following the same playbook. So as Ray was saying in a recent interview. And that's sad. But luckily, people start seeing the light. Derek, thanks for all these insights. Any last tip or, thought?
If you're waiting for the EO to turn into a viable method of transferring personal information to and from the US, don't hold your breath.
Very good. Well, thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Sergio.
Okay, that's all for today. And you will find some episode notes and links to our social channels on mastersofprivacy.com. Thank you for listening.